For many of us who cut our teeth in emergency departments, life as an emergency physician is all we've ever known. In that context, it's easy to normalize the traumatic things that we've experienced and think it's just part of what we do. But being part of the job is not a good coping mechanism. Today, we're joined by Dr. Jeremy Allen, a family physician who shares not just his outsider's perspective on emergency medicine, but also discusses a coping strategy that was very helpful for him during his time working in an emergency department, and may be helpful for you too. It's time for the shift change.
My name is Mike McDonald.
And I'm Gina Blocker.
We are emergency physicians with over 35 years of combined experience in community, military, and academic settings. We have courtroom experience.
Both good and bad.
We have business experience.
Both as owners and employees.
We are each married with 5 kids.
But not to each other.
Odds are good that if you're an emergency physician, you will experience burnout, job dissatisfaction, assault in the workplace, depression, anxiety, litigation, and more. We've chosen a career that can literally take years off our lives. So this podcast is here to bring you the doom and gloom and to encourage you to quit.
Wait a second. No. We are 2 emergency physicians who have survived all of the above and are still standing. This podcast is to help you prolong your career in spite of the odds. We will tell you the things we wish we had known when we were starting our careers, use an evidence-based approach to the problems facing our specialty, and offer solutions that have helped us and others using the lessons we've learned along the way.
Okay, that sounds better.
All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to the show. I am joined today by my good friend, Dr. Jeremy Allen. Thank you for joining us. Glad to have you on the program.
Thank you.
Jeremy, I have known for a long time. He and I went to medical school together, representing Kansas City today. He's a graduate of Kansas City University. He is a family physician, but has some experience with the emergency department, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Today, we're going to kind of jump right in. Why don't you just start with telling us a little bit about yourself and kind of your career path? After medical school, tell us kind of where you trained and how you ended up where you're at today.
So from Kansas City, I came down to Birmingham, Alabama, and did family medicine at what we back in the day called a non-competitive program, meaning we were the only residents in the hospital, which the claim to fame for that was that you would admit somebody from the ER, you would take them all the way through the kind of admission process. If they went to the OR, if they went to the ICU, they stepped them down to the bed, and then you followed them up in the clinic afterwards, which was pretty cool. So we had a nice acute care model, but then continuity of care really focused on understanding the whole path that a patient went through. During my intern year, about half of my class quit. And so interestingly, I ended up being
was that
on
because
call.
Of you?
Yes, I was toxic. So I was that guy, and everybody has to have that guy. So I ended up being the yes man. And so I ended up taking call about every 3 nights to everyone else doing it still Q4, Q5. And I spent a lot of time admitting patients, a lot of time in the ER, a lot of time in the ICU with very sick people. And so I had what I would call an atypical family medicine residency training program as far as the acuity of the patients I took care of. So
sure. So kind of ICU heavy.
Yes.
Way skewed to that end for
lots of procedures, lots of lines, lots of, scans in the middle of the night for people that's conditions were changing acutely. A lot of really having to respond on my feet in the middle of the night in a community-based hospital where we didn't have hospitalists, we didn't have intensivists. It was just me. And I would even get called in on other patients from other services because I was in the hospital and they wrote me in. And so I had a pretty, what I would call now a very robust family medicine residency program. So
sure. And I remember that, we've had a relationship really since med school. And I remember that as I was in emergency medicine training, you were going through things and we would talk on that level of kind of similar experience in terms of acuity of patients, procedures, and those things. So fast forward a few years, your first job out, you were primarily clinic-based, but still doing
some hospital medicine?
Sure. I was a health service corps scholar, and so part of that was to work in underserved area. And so I ended up at County Hospital in Birmingham, Alabama, called Cooper Green Mercy. While there, outpatient medicine, and then was fortunate to be kind of tagged to take over academic medicine, became the medical director for the osteopathic student education program that would later develop into the schools in Auburn and Dothan, Alabama. And I was early as pioneering the osteopathic education. We would do third and fourth year rotations. And so I was in charge of that, did didactics. And then I also took on, at the time, what was a pain clinic, which this was right kind of at the beginning of the opioid crisis. And so I was had the privilege of being one of the first buprenorphine Suboxone providers in the state of Alabama. And so it was an amazing experience, but sadly, as things go, it was also filed the largest municipal bankruptcy in the history of the U.S. And ultimately the hospital was closed. And so I lost my job.
Okay.
And that's where that's why I think I'm here for this part of the story, is because when I lost that job, I had looked at doing kind of a emergency medicine training program with another friend of ours that was out in Idaho, and they were needing staff. And he said, man, just come out. And if we can get you out here, you can work with me for a year, basically do a fellowship with the history that I had and the experience that I had, and wouldn't have a certificate program training, but I would have a fellowship in emergency medicine working alongside him and other guys that had all been in, training programs. And that was the plan. And so that ultimately didn't work out. But day or so after I found out that the hospital was closing, the place where I had done my training, the residency training hospital that I had done mine, approached me and said, hey, would you want to do that program here? And I was like, I need a job. And yes, that sounds, I mean, at the time it sounded,
great.
Yeah, serendipitous, to be able to have the opportunity to then go to work in the emergency room, which is what I was thinking that I wanted to do. And
in a place you were familiar with, people you were familiar with.
In a culture that I knew the players. I knew which cardiologist to call. I knew which nephrologist to call. I knew, I knew who the surgeons were that would answer the phone when you needed help. So,
and we all know primary care commonly overlaps into the emergency department.
Oh, especially in the
historically,
southern states. Yeah,
it's been that way and still today. So, not an uncommon path for you to get there.
No.
So, tell us how it went.
That's also why we're here, right?
Well,
so I guess it didn't go well.
A little foreshadowing. It didn't go well.
Little did he know that some of the things that would transpire over the next 2 to 3 years would be the most formative part of his career.
Yeah.
So it started out, was working one-on-one. I'd worked kind of an 11 to 10 shift, which always had double coverage. And that was the idea, was I would always be there with another provider. And I functioned like a resident at first. I checked out all my patients and did procedures and started working through things. And
to clarify, this is a hospital that's not a low acuity place.
This place has a reputation of being called Murder East. It was Medical Center East when I was there, but it got nicknamed Murder East. And we're joking this morning, several of the team health providers that would come through to fill in would come and work one shift and never come back.
Yeah.
They would say, I'll work anywhere, but I'm not going back there. So that's where I was working, but I didn't know any different because that's where I had done my residency training. And so it was just normal to me.
And this is not the beach end of the pool.
No,
you're jumping in the deep end.
This is a tough part of town that I was working in. And so it went, remarkably well the first month or two, took care of some pretty sick folks. And then we had a couple providers move on. One had some just kind of mental health issues and just felt it was best for him to move on. And then another one got married and moved out of state. And so all of a sudden we're down 2 providers. And the first couple months had gone so well. One of my partners at the time, I would say mentor, because he had been my mentor when I was a resident, approached me and said, hey, don't want to put any pressure on you. But to an achiever who needed a job, who probably didn't feel like he could say no, hey, could you start coming in and working some of the days, single coverage, but you'll only be single coverage for like the first 3 or 4 hours. But you and I both know that
mission creep happens.
Yes. And not just that. What happens at 5 and 6 a.m. every morning?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the freaking ambulance phone and the MIs would start rolling in,
Mm-hmm.
and these people are coming in at unstable rhythms and can't get lines on them. And, you can't get anybody on the phone in a community hospital because they're not even out of bed yet, or they were up all night
Mm-hmm.
dealing with somebody who was coding in the ICU, and they've finally gone home at 3:00 to take a shower and maybe get 2 hours of sleep. And so there were many mornings that I was just stranded.
Yeah.
And
So not only are you in the deep end of the pool, but now the life jacket's been taken off.
yeah, it's off.
And,
It's off.
and you're being pushed under.
Yeah.
Uh,
But at the time, you just respond,
Mhm.
right? At the time, you lean on your training, you respond, you trust the nurses that had, some of them 20 years of experience. And if you go back and look at that time, outcomes wise, I was at the top.
Yeah.
We were doing a really good job on paper.
mhm.
And
But it started to eat at you.
oh yeah. Yeah.
Talk about that just a little bit in terms of, we talked about your training is not like you're familiar with this environment. This is not a new environment,
Right.
but being alone in it
Mm-hmm.
with
Mhm.
added responsibility.
Sure.
You're not a resident
Sure.
anymore. Now you're responsible.
Yeah.
And
You're
you're not double covered. You don't have anybody to fall back on. You're by yourself.
right.
And so how did that kind of lead down into
Yeah.
where you ended up?
So, a couple critical things happened that I can just remember distinctly. I had what would have called myself a procedurist as a resident. I mean, I could put a line in anything, anyone. And the first morning I'm there by myself, I went to put in a subclavian, and I couldn't get a flash. I could not get this line in. And this is right before IOs had become a thing. Like, it was just kind of an experimental. This is a thing that kind of happens in the field with certain ambulance companies would have this machine that would dig this hole in someone's leg. And so I had someone who almost succumbed because I couldn't get access. And so then I started dreading the idea of someone not able to get access. And then I had a critically ill kid one day that I needed to tap, and I had been the champagne tap guy all the way through. Even as a medical student, I could get a champagne tap on a kid at Children's Hospital in Kansas City. And my first time I went to tap somebody, it was like a Venus stick. It was awful. And
It was
so,
what you wanted on the subclavian.
right. It's what I want on the subclavian. Yeah, I could have really used that blood. But it got in my head, man. It just got in my head, and I started dreading anybody with a headache and fever, and I'm like, neck not stiff.
Yeah.
And then probably the worst thing. Well, one more was I had a MI come in. I'm looking at the EKG. It's an MI. I'm looking at the patient, and the cardiologist of record says, "What does the computer say?" And I said,
I've been asked that.
I said, yeah, the computer says non-specific ST changes. He goes, well, I'll be there in a couple hours and we'll take a look at them. Go ahead and I'm like wanting to push the code button, and ultimately I was right, but it still stuck.
Oh yeah.
The doubt there. And then even one of my attendings, I had a sick person that I needed admitted to the ICU, and she let an intern send them home, and they perished. And it was just the attending's doubt of my ability to say, hey, this person needs to be in the unit.
Yeah.
I'm here with them at the bedside. And I know you want to trust your intern. I know you want to trust the people that are working for you, and you don't want to doubt their ability, but this person is sick. Their numbers aren't bad, but I'm looking at them, and they're about to get bad.
Yeah.
And so those kind of four things started making me dread certain cases, dread certain situations, to the point where I would almost convince myself that a line wasn't needed. That this person probably could just be admitted and let neuroradiology or somebody tap them
Potato,
under floor.
somebody else.
Yeah, just pass it on out.
Yeah.
So when you start practicing that way, I went into a protection mode practice.
Yeah. And I've talked about that before on the show. My experience, different triggers, but the same outcome. Having been sued, that made me very hesitant to take care of sick people. The sicker they are, the more
That's it.
the more things could go wrong. And once those seeds of self-doubt get planted, it's really hard to pull those weeds.
Yeah. So probably a year or so in, year and a half in, I'm getting ready to go to work one morning, and I had a great shift the day before, and I'm walking. Literally, I can see it. I'm walking through the living room into the kitchen, and my heart just starts pounding, and my ears, like I couldn't hear, and I was like, "Whoa!" I ended up having to like squat down, and I was like, "Man, I'm dehydrated," because I'd go on a run that morning, and I was like, "Man, I'm just dehydrated," right? So then I go drink some water, and I go to work and have a shift, and everything's great, Took care of a bunch of really sick people, and things were fine, right? So then the next day, I get up and on run again, walking back through the house, same spot. I'm about to walk through. I can remember this arch going out of my kitchen to go down the stairs to where I parked, and my hearing went out again. And I'm like looking around, trying to figure out what's going on in my house. And was like, man, how am I just getting so dehydrated? I'm like, I must just not, I'm not drinking during my shift maybe, or taking in too much caffeine, Well, the third day that it happened in a row, I realized that I was having I realized I was having panic attacks.
Yeah.
And that third one, when I got to the hospital, I couldn't get out of my car.
Yeah.
I physically just sat there and admittedly just wept. Just wept into my shirt that I was terrified to go in that building. And at the time, my wife and the kids had gone on ahead of me on a trip, and I just had this just overwhelming fear of having to tell her that I wasn't going to be able to go back to work. And Mike, we were on I don't remember now exactly what it was, but it's like a 2-week trip. And from the moment I walked out of work that night to the moment I walked back into work 2 weeks later, I felt like I was walking into work every single moment for the next 2 weeks.
I remember you telling me during that time that, you get sick in the shower.
Oh, yeah.
And the dread kind of overtakes you. I certainly have experienced that during my career. I think that's something that a lot of emergency physicians can relate to. On some level. Everybody experiences it differently, but I think it's something that's common to the stress of the job, that that feeling of dread, that it hangs over you, not knowing. One of the things that draws a lot of people to emergency medicine, drew me to it, is what you don't know. Like, anything can come through the door. That's one of the appeals of emergency medicine, but it's also one of the challenges when it gets to the point where you start to question, what if something comes through the door that I can't handle? What if I'm unprepared for the next thing? And that's a really scary place to be.
Yeah. There's one of my mentors talked a lot about pedagogy in teaching residents, and how the further you get in your career, the harder it is to teach, because so much of what you do is just muscle memory, right? And they call it, I think, the Dunning-Kruger effect. And he, the way he would start that question is who do they ask, or who do they get to land naval planes on an aircraft carrier? Seasoned pilots or the new ones?
I'm going to guess it's the new ones.
It's the new ones. And that's just this sense of mastery that people think they get when they first have something that they're learning how to do. It's just the human brain overcompensates and gives you this overwhelming sense of confidence. And you put a kid on a bike and I've got it, and then ram right into the tree, right? But they genuinely thought they had it.
Yeah.
They were not deceiving you. They were not deceiving themselves. They genuinely thought, hey, I've got this. And so I think what happened was this, and I think it happens to a lot of us. And then as we get into our careers, all of a sudden the Dunning kicks off and the Kruger kicks in, and you're like, whoa.
What happens when I don't get this?
Or one of your friends or one of your colleagues that you've always trusted actually gets sued. And you're like, I know that, Dot. that's a great doc. I would trust that doc with anybody.
Yeah.
And they got sued. What am I going to do now?
Or they had a bad outcome.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
Lots of things
So-
can derail the train.
Right. And so that kicked in. And so,
Yeah. Well, fast forward a little bit. You're in a much better place now.
Mhm.
I'm in a much better place now. I think we both would agree.
Yeah.
would agree.
Yeah.
It's not like it used to be. We have been through some low moments.
Mhm.
But what I want to focus on is not so much the problems. I think we all can relate to the problems.
Mhm.
I want you to tell us about what helped you get out of it, because it's something that now, as a now back in the clinic,
Mhm.
family physician, you have incorporated into your practice and have used this to help a number of your patients,
Right.
not just yourself.
Yeah. So, when we endure the things that we endure in our lives, be that a hard case at work or relationally or, training for a sprint triathlon, right? If you don't push yourself into a painful zone, at least in the weeks up until you do that sprint try, you're not going to finish. You're not going to finish in the amount of time that you want to finish. You're not going to meet your goals. So without some level of hardship, there rarely is growth, right? You don't want to do a residency program where you never take care of sick people and then all of a sudden have to go take care of sick people, right?
Yeah.
So what ultimately happened was I burned out. I was done. I got to the point where I couldn't get out of my car at work. I was not wanting to go. My wife would have to just kind of coach me up to get me to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I was given permission to quit by my wife. And
Yeah. Let's pause there for a second, because
sorry.
I think that's really important.
Mhm.
Because I bet that felt like failure. In fact, I know that felt like failure.
In many ways, but it also felt like a relief, because that instead of it becoming this adversarial thing where I'm trying to keep everything together, all of a sudden we were on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a common enemy, and that was me getting better. And so that gave me permission at that point to get better. So I was fortunate to go see a psychiatrist who, it's just amazing. I walk in and the guy's sitting there, and I know this guy, and he goes, "Jeremy Allen." He goes, "Not the referring physician, but the patient." And I'm like, "Mhm." He goes, "Let me guess. Something bad happened at work. You've been trying to talk yourself up, but you just can't make it happen. This isn't the first time you've been like this, but it's gotten out of where you just can't manage it."
Wow.
I'm like, who did you talk to?
Yeah.
And Mikey turned and looked at me and he goes, "Jeremy, it's my story. I'm a psychiatrist because I was a family physician who was working in the ER.
Wow.
And it got to be overwhelming. And I had to quit. And I didn't know what I was going to do. And so I was able to do, they had just started a psychiatry fellowship for family physicians. And I went and did that program while I figured out what was going on. And so in the process of learning how to be a psychiatrist, I learned how to help people heal.
So he just looked at you and recognized it.
He saw it.
Wow.
He said, "I felt it." He said, "I could feel it." He's like, "I could feel it." He said, "The thing that brings most men into a psychiatrist is failure at work." And so he said, "I knew if you're showing up here, there's a problem at work because it's attacking your ability to provide and to do what you think you're supposed to do, called to do." And so he put me on a regimen with a very low anxiolytic dose of sertraline, prazosin at night for alpha blockade for the kind of the PTSD dreams I was having. I was waking up, I thought I was diabetic. I was waking up in the middle of the night every night sweating, thinking my sugar was getting low. So I'd go to bed with Milky Ways beside the bed. So when I'd wake up, I'd eat a Milky Way thinking it was my blood sugar, not realizing I was having trauma dreams.
Wow.
I'd go to bed and I'd sleep all night dreaming of work, and I'd wake up realizing I had to go back to work. It's like I'd never left. And so then he referred me to a therapist to do what he called EMDR. And he said, "Don't look into it too much. It's pretty hokey, but trust me, it's what you need, brother."
Okay.
And when you get to the point where you're that desperate,
You'll try anything.
you'll try anything. And so, and Mike, this morning you and I were talking, and I kind of gave you the analogy I've been giving people lately when they're facing really tough times. And I think it was very present because he said this to me at the time too, that if you go to the X-Men and you look at these kids, they've had these things happening in their lives, and they've got these powers. They don't really know their powers. Much of them think they're burdens. And a lot of times things will happen, right? They'll get stressed and this power will come out where they'll scream and they'll blow down trees or, kill their little sister or something. Right. It just goes whack. Right. And then somebody shows up at their school one day or their home and says, hey, we know you have this thing and we know it's terrifying. And we know when you first realized it, you thought it was maybe kind of cool, but then you realized it made you different and it made you unsafe, or it made you toxic, or it created this alienation feeling that you feel right now. But we want you to know that you're not alone. And not only are you not alone, there's actually a group of us that use these powers to do amazing things in the world. And so Dr. Hall that day said to me, Jeremy, he said, you won't be able to hear this right now, but at some point, this is going to be one of the best things that ever happens to you as a physician. And then I had another friend who...
And you could not hear it.
Oh, no.
You could not hear it in that moment.
I had another friend in Atlanta. He lives in Atlanta now. And he said the same thing. He said, Jeremy, he says, I'm so sorry you're going through this. But brother, he said, this is going to be the best thing that could ever happen to you. He said, just hang in there and I'll support you any way I can. And we're going to be patient with this. And so I went and started doing... EMDR.
Before you get there,
go ahead.
I want to pause there for a second because I like the way that you phrased it this morning. We were talking about this exact subject, and you framed it like your biggest challenge or your biggest failure can either become your superpower or it can become your kryptonite.
Yeah, if you go into the oven, you get cleaned or you get burned.
That's right.
And isolating yourself is going to be burned. Not asking for help.
Because the challenges are going to come. I think it has more to do with what you do with it and how you respond than the challenge itself.
Right. And we all know those guys, and gals that we've worked with that they've just become hardened. Right.
Yep.
They've been in the inferno. They're just hardened.
Yep.
Yeah. They move people in and out and they hit their numbers and they get their charts closed and they make their metrics. But you wouldn't want them to take care of you. Right.
Yeah.
And so we don't want to become that person. And so that was, in order to make it not be kryptonite, it was about stepping into that pain, stepping into that messiness and yuckiness and doing something with it. And so the idea behind EMDR, which is desensitization reprocessing, is how to make it superpower versus kryptonite.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And it's how you deprocess it, de-emphasize it and then reprogram it.
Yeah.
And so I started that journey.
And basically that's dipping into neuroplasticity, as I understand it, in a very simplified view. You obviously know a lot more about this than I do. I have not gotten into the depths of it as you have, but I do know even EMDR is kind of the first breakthrough into this, or one of the first into this neuroplasticity, reprogramming, as you say. And then there are even more kind of cutting edge modifications of that.
And I don't speak as an EMDR therapist. I don't speak, as someone who extensively, even in the last couple of years, has studied it. But what I'll tell you is the way that Frances Shapiro developed it was she would go through these traumatic, difficult counseling techniques with her clients. And then she would get so triggered by them, the clients' experiences, as they would talk about things, that she would have to get out of her office. So she would leave her office and she'd go for a walk. And she found that when she walked down certain pathways in Central Park, when she got to the end of certain pathways, she would feel better. And if she went on different pathways, she wouldn't get the same amount of relief. And what she realized is when she walked down these certain pathways, those pathways were so pleasant to her and they were tree lined. And she would just kind of look around as she walked down this pathway, and they always ended up at this duck pond, which was her favorite place in Central Park. And so if you think about EMDR, eye movement has desensitized her. Then she gets to the duck pond, which is her favorite place in the park, and she reprocesses what she's just experienced because she now has this positive reinforcement at the end of thinking about those things rather than trapped despair back into it, the muck. My stomach is hurting. My chest is hurting. I don't want to feel that again.
Ooh,
And so what most of us do when we experience that feeling, we all know where those memories live. Like you say, hey, where does that live? And you go,
right here.
here, or here, or in my hands, or this. When we start to feel those things, we don't walk into that. We
Run.
We go away from it. We either go to the side, we shut down, we check out, right? And a lot of times we talk about this. You know, I've talked about this. And so, like a lot of times in trauma, there's a slowing of your mentation as a coping technique. So a lot of people would describe, I'm so nervous until I get to work. Once I get to work, I'm fine.
Yep.
But I just can't like remember things as quickly as I would like to, right? Normally I can calculate that dose in my head and all of a sudden I'm pulling out MedCalc or I'm seeing people and I'm like, man, I know that, what is that doctor's name?
Yeah.
And so you go into flight or freeze, right? And so all of a sudden you're frozen, but you're not nervous. But that's still living in you, right? And so one of the things you talk about with the EMDR, and one of the word pictures I like is like you have an iPhone and it has all these apps open, right? And you're needing Google Maps and you're going like click, 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 trying to find Google Maps, and all of a sudden you get to it, right? And so the idea is you start to go through those stories that make you feel this. And you start to close those apps.
Yeah. You kind of walked me through this once. It wasn't a therapy session. It was a phone call after a bad shift. I had made a mistake and had missed, I saw a patient. He had a positive troponin, ACS, clear ACS, but I had forgotten to give him aspirin or heparin. And I was just living in that, exactly what you say, that feeling in your stomach, and you're just trying to run from it. And even in that moment, something that helped me a ton in talking to you sort of quote unquote gave me permission. You told me just feel it and feel all of it and sit in it for about 2 minutes. Just take 2 minutes and feel every bit of that yucky sensation. And I did that. And then you can walk away. It's fascinating to me because it's, like you say, it sounds kind of hokey. It sounds like it wouldn't work. It sounds touchy-feely. Whatever the hardened generation that I think you and I grew up in the 20, 30 years ago, where you didn't want to feel things. It was suck it up, buttercup, and move forward. To us, to our ears, it sounds almost silly. But having done it, I never felt that way again. It allowed me to close the door and move on in a way that I never had really done before. And so,
interestingly, there's some stuff that's coming out lately on neuroplasticity and channels and pathways that gratitude and anxiety cannot coexist. Like literally, I think it's amygdala, hippocampus, substantia, I don't know, where it is in the brain, the magic part of the brain, the blue part or whatever they call it. When they do functional imaging studies and they light it up, when they have someone to say things they're grateful for, the same part of the brain lights up. And so if you'll remember what I had you do, and I remember it, and when we got there, I said, feel that in your chest, feel it in your stomach, sit in that. You feel that, right? All right. Now just tell me something good. Anything good. Just picture anything good in your life. And you're like coming home and a kid hits my leg, or coming home and knowing that I'm off for the next 12 hours. I said, all right, now feel that. Where do you feel that? And you're like, I kind of feel that in my face and I kind of feel that in my hands. I was like, okay. All right, now let's go back and let's feel that when you realize that you had not written the aspirin or the, whatever. I said, let's go back to that now. And you were like,
it's shocking.
Feel it.
It's shocking.
Yeah. So the theory is that it simulates REM sleep.
Yeah.
And so it moves stuff from an active part of your brain through your hippocampus or amygdala, whatever, over to another part of your brain, which is your longer term memory. So it moves it out of what we think about as focused memory versus diffuse memory, right? So focused memory, you're working on a math problem, but while you're working on that math problem, your diffuse memory is what's remembering all your times tables, right? And if you never learned your times tables, then it's really hard to do math because you're having to think of everything in your focused memory. And so the idea behind any type of learning is to take the thing you've just experienced and move it into your diffuse memory. And so I'm able to do that, you know, on a micro scale now. Like I've gotten so adept at it to where when things hit me and kind of trigger whatever, I can stop even for a moment and just kind of alternate my hands and tap and sit in that feeling and realize it's not going to kill me.
Yeah. Now, understand EMDR is not for everyone.
No.
Different types of therapy help different people differently.
Oh, yeah.
And the purpose of this show is not necessarily to promote EMDR to you or listeners, but really to shine a light on this is one possible way that you can get help if you're struggling.
Hope.
There is hope.
Hope.
You are not alone.
That's it.
There are alternatives to just sitting in your car feeling sick.
Yeah.
And I would encourage anyone who's struggling with this to reach out to a counselor, to reach out to a therapist, reach out to a psychiatrist, reach out to a family doc. It's interesting to hear your psychiatrist's story about how he got there. I think this is far more common than we talk about, and that's why we want to shine a light on it. There is help. If you're struggling, there is help. We encourage you to go find it. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, or you can reach out to us at shiftchangepod@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear your experience. We'd love to hear your success stories. And we'd love to hear your questions. What do you want to hear about next? Dr. Allen, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a delight talking.
So let me ask you from your notes here. Is it part of the job to just feel sick when you're at work?
Thank you. I almost missed it. We end every show with I wish I knew, and now I know.
Yeah.
I wish I knew it's part of the job is not a coping strategy. It's part of the job is what we say. It's not how we deal with the difficult, traumatic experiences that we walk through.
Right.
So I wish I knew, now I know, and I hope that helps somebody out there.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Only a doctor would say, I'm just a doctor.
We have to change the narrative.
I need to rekindle this curiosity about why we do what we do.
Give yourself time to mourn the change of the shift that you're in your life.
It's okay when it feels like too much.
It's okay.